Good morning. My name is YK Chalamcherla. Welcome to Apapa's Leadership Skill Training Workshop. Today's workshop topic is Getting Elected to Local Office. It's a part of series presented by Apapa's Government Relations Committee, known as GRC. I would like to invite our GRC Chair, Patrick Lay, to officially welcome all of you and introduce our today's guest. Mr. Patrick?
Thank you, YK. Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Lay, and I am the chair of the Apapa Government Relations Committee. I truly want to thank you all so much for taking time out of your Saturday morning to join us and Apapa for our inaugural workshop on getting elected to office. Before we start, I'd like to take a quick minute to give everyone some context for this workshop and what to expect in the coming months as we have great content that's being organized. As part of the service that our committee offers, we host these types of workshops and programs to help our members and the Asian Pacific Islander community cultivate the skills and knowledge that they may need to become leaders in politics, in public service, or even in the private corporate sector. Today's workshop is actually part of a series of events, and all will feature really amazing leaders who will share their experience and expertise with us. So we will have a series of workshops like this one today on how to run for elected office, how to work with campaign consultant and staff, but we'll also have workshops on how to work with the media and press, managing social media networks, and the art of public speaking. So all of that to say, stay in touch with Apapa for more content to develop your leadership skills. But today, I am just incredibly excited to help kick off our first workshop on how to run for office. We are joined by just simply amazing Asian American leaders who all are trailblazers in their own way and who have been so generous as to share their time with us to provide some advice on topics like how to evaluate yourself as a candidate or how to prepare to run for office. So today we are joined by Mayor Lily May, who was elected to a city council seat in 2014 and who was sworn in 2016 as the first woman and minority mayor of the city of Fremont, California. We're also joined by Councilmember Sheng Thao, who was elected in 2018 to the Oakland City Council and was the first Hmong American woman to be elected on a city council seat and was recently voted council president pro temp this past January. Joining us is also Allan Fung, who is the former mayor of Cranston, Rhode Island, and who was a party nominee for the election of governor of Rhode Island in 2014 and 2018. And finally, but definitely not least, is my distinct pleasure to also introduce our moderator today, our very own YK Chalamcherla, who is a member of the Apapa Government Relations Committee and council member for the great city of Folsom in California. Now, before we start, I would also be remiss not to mention that we are hosting this event during a really difficult time in the API community. As we all know, we are still grieving the deaths of 8 individuals, including 6 Asian women who were killed in Atlanta, Georgia. And this tragic event is, occurring as hate crimes targeted against Asian Americans have, significantly increased and escalated in violence this past year. On a personal note, I truly believe that now and more than ever, we need more trailblazers like our 4 panelists today. We need more Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders represented at all levels of government. And that starts with running for office. So I want to really thank our panelists today for both representing our community in the work that you do and for being willing to share with us your knowledge, your wisdom, and your experience so others may follow in the path that you really forged for all of us. So with that, thank you again for all of the Apapa members who are watching and joining us today. And YK, I'm handing off the event over to you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Under your leadership as a chairman, GRC is, kickstarting and offering so many great events to our community. Okay, so with that, I think, again, my name is YK, Chalamcherla. YK, it's a very easy name, 2 letters, YK, and I'm recently elected a city council member for city of Folsom. And I'm going to introduce our first panelist for today's workshop, Mayor Lily May. And when I announced in 2018, she offered me, YK, come down to Fremont, let's talk about it. She spent 3 hours, it's a breakfast to lunch event, explaining all the great things. If I'm here today, besides my big Apapa, people like Mayor May. Mayor May, thank you so much for being with us. And we would like you to invite to our workshop and share the same knowledge and wisdom you have shared with me several years ago and made me as an elected official. You have that credit too. Please, share your thoughts about getting elected to local office.
Sure. I think that many people run for elected offices, and I don't think that that was my plan originally. When I was studying in school, I never said to myself, oh, I'm going to become a politician. But what got me motivated, I think, much like other people, is finding an issue that is personal and important to you. I know that, for example, we talked earlier about this moment right now, this watershed moment where APIs are feeling the need to voice our concerns and raise our voices instead of just being a model minority and complacent. I got involved, much like many other people, and I can't speak for Sheng or some of the others, but for me, it was for my children. I had been involved in volunteering with schools, and when there were issues and processes that came up, I felt that, I went to a lot of these meetings, and people either go to the meetings, and much like we do today still, we have people coming to the meetings to complain or yell at the politicians. But rather than just yelling or being upset about the process, I thought it was more important that we try to fix it and be part of the solution. So for me, I just got involved in schools and PTA and school site council. And as my children grew older, I felt that it was an opportunity for me to represent the people because of the fact that there was some major changes that were occurring, and that I could hopefully use some of my business skills to help the community. A little bit of background: I am born in Chicago, grew up in Pennsylvania. And when we talk about some of these experiences and events, I think those are some of the things that shaped me too. Growing up in Pennsylvania in a time period of the Vietnam War era, I had often been targeted, and it's unfortunate as a kid to be stuffed in lockers, had mailbox blown up and tires slashed, windows shot out, and other things that really then, made me wonder at that moment, why are people targeting or hating on someone who, as a child, I certainly hadn't done anything to them. But it taught me some more resiliency. And sometimes while these experiences are incredibly painful to have as a child, they really help shape you and make you feel important, how critical it is for us to voice our concerns. So when my daughter enrolled in school, there was a problem with overcrowding. And I have to tell a small tip too. I think YK's daughter and I actually ended up in college together. So I will disclose that in full disclosure too. But my MIFs, or Made in Fremont, are 24 and 20. And so when they were in school, I got involved with the school site council and PTA. And when there was an issue with overcrowding, rather than just giving up, which a lot of people did, I started writing my electeds and wanting to get in front of them, doing research, looking at just not the board policy, administrative regulations. And then as I served on the school board, I was on there for 2 terms. Another moment like this occurred when I had been on the school board, and there was some discussion about representation. If you ever been to the California School Board Association in Sacramento, I walked down the hallways when I first got up there, and I said, wow, it's 50 years of extreme homogenous. And it was 50 years of legacy of leadership that had been not very reflective of the state of California. And while there are a lot of times there were a Black at large, Latino at large, and there are the legislative caucuses that were involved, it still wasn't the best representation. And so we reconstituted the Council of Presidents, which represented the other minority groups. And so rather than having diversified opinions, we try to unify on the fact that we need to all be represented. And how can we work with the board of directors to ensure that our voices and concerns are being met? Later on, as my kids grew older, I thought it was important for me, since my background, a little disclosure, is I am originally worked for PC manufacturers. I was a worldwide sales controller, and I also ran a trade association preventing counterfeiting domestically and also worldwide. So I thought it was important for us to bring these cultures to work together. And that's what I found truly when I served on the city council. Fremont is the 4th largest city in the Bay Area. It has over 105 languages and dialects being spoken. It is the 3rd largest API city by percentage of population in the United States, and one of the 4th largest in the nation. So it's important for us, especially in these moments, to see and be the change that we want. I feel very blessed to be the first woman and first minority mayor in our city's history. When I first came on, I was the 8th councilwoman, and there's a 35-year history. We're in the process of repainting our city hall wall right now. And as I looked at the portraits, there were 35 years with no women at all. And in these last few years that I've been on the council, not only have we seen the first time that we've had a majority minority Asian council, this year we also had our first Black councilwoman, and we also have the first time in our city's history ever of having a majority of women council members. So these types of things happen, but it takes real effort in terms of growing and working with other people to ensure that they're given the opportunity to run. So thank you for allowing me to share just a little bit about myself and why it's important for us to voice our concerns. And I look forward to these candid conversations, and I'm sure YK has some questions for all of us. And I'm very proud of getting to know Allan and being involved with other API elected efforts. I am also one of the founding members here in the Bay Area for Apapa East Bay many years ago. And then I've also had the pleasure of knowing Councilmember Thao and watching her through the years, because she's been very active in the Bay Area, supporting some of her fellow council members before as staff member, and then just been very proud to see her grow in her path. And I also was delighted most recently that, and I'm very humbled that the two of us were recognized for Powerful Women of the East Bay. And I'm very humbled because I think much like her, I was wondering, how did we get picked? But it was just amazing to be able to be part of a cohort. And especially that's one of the areas I think that I have a passion for right now, is trying to see more API women getting elected. When I looked at the elections many years ago when I first got onto the council, or especially as mayor, I was surprised to see myself noted in the APAC's month for the women elected, Women History Month. And it is sad to say that I think for directly elected large city mayors, I'm the 3rd in U.S. history. So we had Mayor Saito in Long Beach, Mayor Kwan in Oakland, and then also now Mayor Guo in Bakersfield. But in the next few years, I'm really hoping to see that change and to see more fellow API women elected. It is kind of daunting when I go to some of these conferences at National League of Cities or U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I'm here at the women's lunches. And then I look around, everyone's very excited. They say, we've all made it. And I look around the room and I'm like, I'm the only Asian woman in this room right now. And so we want to see that change. We want to see more people involved. And it's not just for yourself, it's for hopefully setting a pathway for the future. I had a grandmother whose feet were bound back in the history and tradition of China. But my great grandmother was liberal enough to free her feet. And it was something probably pretty radical at that time period. But as a mother of a young woman, I really hope that we go from our feet being bound to our dreams knowing no bounds. And that's what I hope to help us do in working with Apapa and working with my fellow electeds, is to create that pathway that we can allow people to walk and expand and to lead our way for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mayor Mee. And you explained, that your passion and how you want to run, why you want to run, and the kids and minorities, getting the seat at the table and express our views. I'm going to switch it to our Councilmember Thao. Councilmember, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And you are an inspiration for me. That time I was not elected. When you were speaking for the Apapa student internship at the Sheraton Hotel, wow, your keynote speech touched me. And you also, a very strong influence, me getting elected for Folsom City Council. Without further ado, would you please, share with us your experience and running for the elected office? What motivated you?
Absolutely. So my name is Sheng Thao. I represent the beautiful city of Oakland. I represent District 4 in Oakland. And my background is I'm a daughter of refugees. My parents arrived to United States as refugees around 1979. And so growing up, I grew up in a very impoverished way, but we didn't feel that we were poor. I didn't know that we were poor growing up until I went to school and saw what the other kids had. And so I think that that's an important factor in regards to, life experiences and what we all go through in life and what kind of experience we bring when we lead our cities. I am also the president of the API Caucus of League of Cities as well. And so that's something that I'm really proud of. I am committed to getting more APIs elected to office, especially API women. I'm also the representative, like what Lily May said, at ACTC. And I think that a special thing about me is that I'm actually the product of Apapa. I did just like Mayor Lily May. While I was in school, I didn't think that I wanted to be a politician. I was actually on the track to go to law school, but through the Apapa internship, I was able to be linked up with local government, and through that, it really inspired me, and it opened a whole new door that I didn't know about. What local government meant. And so when you say getting elected for office, the question becomes, why run for office? And I did have a presentation that I want to bring up. And so if the tech can bring up the presentation so that we can go through it.
Awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if the presentation is up already, but I can't see it.
Councilwoman Thao, yes, the presentation is up for everybody.
Oh, okay. So I just can't see it. So the first slide says getting elected to local office, why run? You can create direct impact to the community. And that was one of the reasons why I decided that I wanted to run. Seeing the experiences of my family, right? Seeing how there was a difference in treatment, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in schooling, or, in any aspect at all, in housing, right? If you are poor, or, then you're treated differently, right? And then what does that mean in regards to the middle class as well? Like, what's the accessibility to the resources that you receive, whether you're in the working class or middle class? So it's like societal norms and what kind of impact you can create. And also, why run for office is be that voice at the decision-making table. We see that a lot of APIs are not at these decision-making table, and representation means everything, right? For me, I am super honored to represent working families. I'm honored to be a Southeast Asian woman. I am the first Hmong woman to be elected to City Council in the state of California, which is something I'm incredibly honored to take on that role, right? And to be that voice, not just for the communities of Oaklanders, but also for my Hmong community and my API community as well. Next slide, please. Like I said, I can't see the slide that's switching, but this next slide should be, I wanted to speak about what characteristics are needed to be a winning candidate from the voters' perspective, right? And so what characteristics do you need to hone into in order for the voters to see you as a winning candidate? Next slide. And so it goes to confidence, right? Do I feel confident that this candidate will speak up and speak out, especially for the things that I care about? And so when we talk about, the issue, a lot of these issues with the API hate, is my local elected official going to speak up when there's hate, when there's racism? Is my local elected official, who I want to represent me, going to speak up when I say, hey, I think that parks are incredibly important, right? Can you please put some more funding into parks? And so really the confidence behind the voters or do we share some of these things that, that I care about? And will this person also care about and care enough to speak up and speak out? Next slide, please. So the next slide is, can I relate to this candidate, right? Your identity. So there's identity politics that come into play. And as you can see, I am the first, like I said, I am the first Hmong woman to be elected. And that could mean a lot. We saw currently with the Attorney General's position, right, having Assembly Member, now Attorney General Rob Bonta, there is a voice there. There is representation. So identity politics come into play. Life experiences. I am a domestic violence survivor. I am a single mom. I am also, I'm a daughter of refugees. So all of these life experiences are going to come to play. And when voters are looking at who they want to support, they're looking for a link of how is my identity similar to this candidate? Because if we have shared life experiences, then that means that they're most likely going to advocate for the things that I care about too, right? The immediate things that are going to enrich my life, and also the things that I have experienced that we can actually try to make changes and an impact on. And also social alignment, right? In regards to, how do I feel about putting more resources in communities that have been most marginalized, right? That might be something that the voters care about. And so a lot of these things is, can I put my confidence behind this candidate in regards to their identity, their life experiences, their social alignment, and other aspects as well. Next slide, please. So the next slide is about who that I trust as a voter has also supported this candidate, right? So we're talking about, does this candidate have the backing and the support, excuse me, and the endorsement of, certain organizations like the nurses, like the firefighters, right? I feel like I can trust, if the firefighters and the nurses, for example, if they're backing this candidate, and these are the groups that I feel that I can trust to pick who should lead the community, then maybe I will go with that person, right? So in a candidate, you have multiple candidates, and usually a lot of the candidates are all very similar, right? You know exactly what's going on, the issues that are happening in your community, and it's all very similar. So how do you distinguish yourself? And so a lot of times, people look at who is backing you. Is it the police officers that are backing you? And what does that mean, in regards to how much does the voters care about these said organizations? And so that's going to be incredibly important in regards to how, you get voters to be confident in you as their leaders. They're going to look to who else, in the community would support you that they can also trust and they see as a trust agent. Next slide, please. The next slide is, does the candidate have relationships with and or work with colleagues, elected officials from outside the local jurisdiction to bring in resources, right? So this goes back to your standing relationships, your interactions with voters and other candidates. So your standing relationships, such as my standing relationship with Mayor Lily May. When I ran for my seat, Mayor Lily May stood up and said, I will back Sheng. I have worked with her capacity as a staffer to an elected, and I believe that she can do the job, right? So because Mayor Lily May has backed me, then it gives me the weight to go and talk to other local officials and say, look, this mayor backs me because she knows my work. And so because of her connection with the other mayors and council members, they're like, well, we've worked with Lily before, and, she wouldn't back somebody who couldn't do the job. So yes, I will back this person. And not just that, but to the community, right? The community sees that Mayor Lily May is doing such a great job. And if she's willing to back myself, then the confidence is there that I'm able to take on the work and move the city forward. And also, voters are always looking at how you interact with voters, right? Do you have a positive attitude? Do you have an attitude of moving the city forward and not just staying stagnant, right? Is it that your interactions with voters, whatever you're telling them, how is the city, how do you see the city moving forward? That's all important. They're always watching you. So you are like the saying goes, you're always on, and that is incredibly important. Another important aspect is, how do you interact with other candidates, right? Are you nice to each other? Are you aggro towards each other, right? Is there, they want a leader who's able to work with people. So, if they can see that you can work with the candidates who are opposing you, then maybe you can work with people if you are elected to office as well. So that's incredibly important. Next slide, please. The next slide is know who you are and where you've been. There will be opposition research that will happen on you. And so you must know who you are and where you've been and what you've done. And be confident in your past, right? And be confident in your past and be ready for a response. Be ready for a response because they will dig it up and it will come up. And so, this is incredibly important. Just confidence in your past and being ready as a response and not being surprised by what people may be able to dig up is incredibly important. So you might want to do opposition research on yourself just to see what is out there. And this includes your immediate family as well. Your immediate family, maybe even friends that you hang out with a lot or what have you. It's all fair game. Let's just be very clear and frank about that. It's all fair game. Your whole family, your close friends, and even your sisters and brothers sometimes as well too. Next slide. So the next slide is confidence in yourself, who you are and what you will bring to the table. Never underestimate, well, everybody goes through this experience, right? Well, actually not, everybody may be going through that experience, but we need leaders to step up. We need people to step up with that experience to speak on it because not everybody goes through that. And they need for a champion to come out to say, I'm willing to lead through the experience. Next slide, please. The next slide is about passion. Is there a fire, a hunger to create the change, to be the change agent, right? How are you speaking about issues you care about? That's going to be incredibly important. People are going to hear your tone. Are you a fighter, right? Are you going to be able to fight for what they need? Or are you, or maybe, you're just a sensible person who's able to deliver, projects or also deliver and work with colleagues to, get policies passed. So that's incredibly important as well in regards to your fight, your hunger. It's in your tone of voice when you are speaking at candidate forums. It's your tone of voice when you're speaking with constituents. And all these tones will change depending on what space you're in. The tone will change depending on who you're speaking to. Next slide, please. So does your past and current commitments, priorities, actions reflect the things that you are wanting to change and impact? So this goes back to your resume, your life resume, right? So for example, for me as a student at UC Berkeley, even before I even thought about getting into politics, I'm very super involved around food insecurity. I did a lot of work around food insecurity for students with children to make sure they succeed. Education has always been a big thing for me. Like I said, I'm a single mom, so I fight for, resources for single parents as well. I also fight for, for victims in regards to domestic violence, because that's my experience and my life resume, has shown that. And not just that, but the engagement that I have had within the community have shown that. My volunteerism has shown that I care about these things. So it's really, when you put together what your resume looks like, it's everything that you have done in your past. And does that reflect what you are now saying in regards to what you're trying to do to move your local government forward? Next slide, please. So this is my last slide, and I wanted to leave you all with a couple of quotes from Vincent van Gogh. The first one is, "Great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. And great things are not accidental, but most certainly will be willed." The next quote is, "Normality is a paved road. It's comfortable to walk, but no flowers grow on it." So be fierce and be brave and step up to the plate, and we are here to always support you. Please reach out to any one of us to get advice. And thank you so much, YK, for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilmember Thao. It is so inspiration, listening to you and why run for office. Great. I'm going to come back to both ladies quickly before, please hang on there. And I would like to, touch base with our third esteemed member, our Mr. Former Mayor Allan Fung from the Cranston, Rhode Island. Thank you, sir. I met you at Washington, D.C., last year, and I heard your voice. All of you made a big inspiration. When you can make an inspiration on me, I would like you all to make the same inspiration, encouragement to our API community at large locals. Please share with us, why you want to run for office and your ideologies, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, YK. It was very nice to meet you as well. I want to take a moment to thank Apapa for putting together this wonderful panel session and first of several workshops. I'm honored to be with Lily and Sheng on this introductory panel to help you all get elected. Just like Lily and Sheng, my background, I was born and raised in Rhode Island, but my parents came to this country in 1969. Not knowing a word of English. And, my grandmother, like Lily's, was also, had the bound feet. And it's all of our histories and backgrounds that we bring to the table. And as we evaluate ourselves to kind of run for office, it's who we are, our identities, our cultures, our heritages, our education, and most importantly, our life experiences that we bring to public office. I never imagined as I was growing up, because typical Chinese parents, typical Asian parents, study, pursue your career, and I chose being a lawyer. If you go back to my high school yearbook, that's what you'll see, that it was a career in the law that I chose. Never envisioned that I'd jump into politics. And, like Lily, I jumped in because I was angry with what was going on in the city, a city that offered my parents the opportunity to start their small family business, a Chinese restaurant, the opportunity that I had to grow up, go through the educational system, my two younger sisters as well. That city that offered so much, the second largest in Rhode Island, was on the verge of bankruptcy, with the worst bond rating of any city in the country. When I started looking into what was going on, that's what angered me and motivated me to run for office. I started out running for the city council, not knowing what, I was getting myself into. But when I was successful and became the first Asian ever to be elected into office, I loved every minute of it. Not only helping and answering constituents' questions, but most importantly, getting a chance to turn the city's finances around. That's when I decided to run for mayor. And 12 years later, I'm the second longest serving mayor in the city's history, and ended up out of office because of term limits. So as I, ran for office, there was a lot going through my mind. And, Sheng, shared her background about that evaluation process, and hopefully my slide deck's up now, because I want to kind of go into what you should do to prepare yourself for that journey, because it's not easy. It really is a lot, and you're not going to be able to do it yourself. One thing I can't stress enough, just like, Lily helped you, YK, and as well as Sheng, I had a lot of people to help me as well. So if we can turn to that first slide deck, where it says, don't believe the hype. One of the things I want to get out there is, you're always going to have everyone telling you you're the best at this. When I first started, oh, you got the right skill set. You're the best lawyer out there. You're a minority. You're this. Your parents' restaurant been in the city for X amount of years. Everyone goes there. Everyone knows you. Well, it's great to hear. And a lot of times you feel energized, but you also have to make sure that you don't get what baseball players call those rabbit ears and get your head filled in with all that hype, because it's not that easy. You've got to make sure that you surround yourself with good people. But most importantly, if you move to that next slide, one of the things you really have to get to know and love is data. Data, and even more data. Before you jump in, take the time to do a little bit of the research about what your city is, what your district is, what your ward, may comprise of, the past election results, past vote totals. And if you can't afford, depending on what level of a race you might have, if you can't afford to do polling means so much. I in my runs for mayor, I've polled. In my runs for governor, I've polled. I didn't poll when I was running for the city council because the funds weren't there. But as you consider each different office, polling gives you a great snapshot in time of what people are thinking. To some of the points that Sheng was talking about and Lily was talking about, you get a chance to know what people are passionate about, what's on their minds right then and there, and whether people know you. So when you take those data sets into consideration, if you have the right team in place, you're going to chart that winning course that's going to make sure that your messaging's on point, as well as even something as simple as when you launch, because timing is everything. And that data set from both what happened in past elections to what your polls are telling you, or even what your friends, neighbors, and family are telling you, all go into when you should launch. Because as you see, each election is going to be different. And sometimes even national politics can impact at the local level. And I've had that happen on a couple of my elections, whether it was for mayor or even my runs for governor. So next slide, please. I just want to jump into, outside of data, Sheng mentioned something that's critically important. Take a look at your background too, and especially any type of past transgressions, arrests, or, as we all know in this day and age, your social media posts. Scrub that, because, whether it's times that you were in high school or in college where maybe you had some little bit of underage drinking where you posted those photos, nowadays, it all comes back. But it's okay. It's okay. But, you have to be able to explain to those voters, explain to the media, explain to everyone what happened. Because we've all in our past have done things that, whether it was because you were young and made some foolish mistakes, or even some transgressions in business or in your personal life, it happens. And we all go through it, and we all experience different things in our lives, and that's who we are, and that's what we bring to the table. So as you take a look at your background, take a look at the data, the most important, next slide please, people that you have to prepare is your family, and having that discussion about with your family about why you want to run. Because not only are you going to be in the public eye, which isn't easy, but so won't they. Whether it's your spouse, whether it's your significant other, whether it's your children. I've always had the practice that kids are off limits, but not every candidate, not every campaign follows those rules. And political campaigns will dig into all sorts of backgrounds. And so long as your family's prepared and by your side in that journey, that makes a world of difference. Next slide, please. Once you make that decision to run, it's great. Build that kitchen cabinet, because that kitchen cabinet that you have is going to be your sounding board, your inner circle. You really shouldn't have more than 5 people as part of that inner circle. Some may have more, some may have less. But those 5 individuals are going to be the ones that are going to be founding members of your campaign, your business, essentially, and they have to be all in with you. It could be your family members. It could be someone experienced in, campaigns or not. But what you want from them is their brutal honesty, and you want them also to have that ability to influence others. Next slide, please. As you're building that team outside of your kitchen cabinet, make sure you have some, good talent. And depending on which level of a campaign you're running, you could have different sets of individuals in different roles that I have in my slide. Or if it's, some of the smaller campaigns, one person could be that jack of all trades that fit all of, those bullets that are up there. But what's most important, you really need an experienced campaign manager or someone who's experienced, whether it's a consultant, who will advise the team as to what they need to do. Make sure you have a very good campaign treasurer. That person's going to keep you out of trouble with the campaign finance laws. Another big thing you're going to have to get used to is building that fundraising team. Have someone that's there that can quarterback and make sure that keeps you on track with your fundraising calls, but most importantly, keeps the team together, as well as a social media coordinator, volunteer coordinator, and a smart policy person that can really make sure that what you believe in gets out to the voters so that that's part of your winning message. Next slide, please. Fundraising is critically important, and it's the lifeblood to making sure that the campaign engine runs. And you can't underestimate the time it's going to take for fundraising. And I know Sheng and Lily will tell you that probably the worst part about campaigning is fundraising, but you have to do it, because once you raise those dollars, and you're going to have to work twice as hard to do it, it fuels your volunteer activities, your messaging, whether it's getting on the radio, getting on television, or the mailers that go out there, or even something as simple as your lawn signs. That is what's going to make sure that your campaign has everything it needs to get through to Election Day. Next slide. Well, once you get all of those pieces in place, make sure that your team and yourself knows the important thing is to stay on message, because so many people want to, in mid-campaign, move from one message to the other. You want to have your campaign team sick of and able to recite your stump speech by even the second week, because they're going to have to influence others and answer questions from others, whether it's yourself or them. But make sure you pivot back to talking about your plans and your values, and making sure that you're building those winning coalitions for Election Day. And if you have this team, while it seems daunting, it's not. There's a lot of people that are willing to help you. Make sure you do this with the right components, because we're not going to be able to do it ourselves. I haven't, Lily hasn't, Sheng hasn't. But we're here as resources to help you make sure that you get that message. But the most important message all of us have is enjoy the ride. So thank you for the opportunity to share my experience today.
Thank you so much, Mayor Fung. It is so inspirational. I know so many audience are, listening and watching to you and understanding, why you want to run. You are angry. There is a trigger from every individual why they want to run for an office to make a difference. So today's program workshop is going to be mainly focusing on, in general, on the specifics you have explained why. I'm going to ask a follow-on question to Mayor May. Maybe you can give us those 2 or 3 things, how any person watching you, us, or listening, to prepare well for 2020 November elections. What do they have to do today? Prepare them. Anything you can give them an advice so that they can take home and start preparing?
Well, I think that one of the things I'd give as advice for running for office is finding something that, is personal to you. I think that translates. When I listen to Sheng talking or Mayor Fung talking, former Mayor Fung talking, it's about the things that you felt were important to your community. And then I have a little bit of differing opinion on endorsements, not just the endorsements of organizations, because I think that lends to a lot of credibility. I think people often look at elections, and I go to so many different events in the community, and I jokingly say it's like a pyramid, and everybody seems to go for the top. And there's people that they recognize, and absolutely, whether it's public safety. Sure.
Echo on that, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Is this better? It's having some echo, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's better.
Okay. But as I was saying, that most people go to the top in terms of endorsements, and I think that there is some truth to that. But when I ran the first time, I thought about the people that were not always the endorsements that people think of. I thought about my neighbors, and when I listen to many politicians come visit my schools and community, they say, I represent you. And I'm thinking to myself, I've never seen you in my life. I don't know who you are. You don't know anything about me. But if you talk to people, whether it's my faith-based leaders or it's my teacher or the people that I'm friends with are giving that credibility, it brings a lot more in terms of bringing the voters in. And one of the things that I've really prided myself in, and I think it's important, I had great role models, and I stand on the shoulders of people who've come before me too as fellow electeds. I had a gentleman, Steve Cho, who maybe is in the audience if he's watching, and others who I watched in the community. And the fact that what I saw from them that made me resonate, sometimes even if you don't agree with everybody on every political view, is the fact that they genuinely cared about their community, that they were present, that they were there. And when I ran the first time and I was listening to some of the discussion about endorsements, I had this situation where somebody did not endorse me, and I served 2 terms on the school board, and they said, we already have someone that looks like you. And I jokingly said, I didn't know I lived in a crayon pack and there's only one yellow. And so it was pretty frustrating to hear that. And that from that perspective, they were concerned that I couldn't represent other groups. And so that made me even more motivated to show that while I may not be of a certain ethnicity or a certain faith, it doesn't preclude me from wanting to be part of that community, to understand their concerns, to going out there. And so I jokingly have also told people this last election was my 5th election, and I don't know if it'll be a 6th one still, but I've run 5 elections, and you can literally watch, because our city is 90 some square miles. I'm a little atypical. While mailers and polling and other things are important, for me, the most important part was getting out to the people. And so you can actually watch me at the beginning of my campaigns, and you can actually visibly see me shrinking as time goes on, and I go through pairs of shoes because I'm literally going with my community. But I'm very fortunate, because when I ran too, I have children who were very active in the community and got me involved in sports and got me involved in Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, swim team, soccer team, all kinds of activities. But through those coalitions of people who have that same belief that you do, my consultants or advisors, and as they're talking about kitchen cabinets in my first couple races, especially when I was running for school board, were not professional consultants. They were I jokingly called them my mom squad. There were people that I've known and that we raised our kids together. They have no financial benefit. All they want is to have a good community to live in. And I figured that if I couldn't get my friends and the moms that I knew who I've spent years with to support the idea of me running or to be somebody who represents them, then how could I represent the community as a whole? And so sometimes it is important. I definitely agree with Mayor Fung that you need somebody who will give you the brutal honesty, because it's easy to get caught up. And that's one of the things that I would say as an advice is that be true to yourself, because as you go further in this policies and practices, people will try to drag you into all different directions. They will tell you that you need to be this way or that way. There's all these litmus tests, but you have to be comfortable with who you are at the end of the day and the votes and decisions that you make, that you have to be comfortable with knowing that you did your best, that you've reached out to the community, that you're trying, and to try to educate. A good example for me right now is that many people are frustrated with the COVID impacts with their communities, on themselves, on their housing, on their schools, on homelessness. And I think that as mayors, and I think Mayor Fung may agree with that, sometimes you feel like you're wearing a target or a dart on their back because people get frustrated and they don't know who else to blame. The buck stops here. But it's important that we make that effort. And I know Sheng has done that too with town halls and going out to the community, because we want them to learn how to voice and to be productive in doing so. It's not enough just to come at the date of the vote, to be upset about a budget, to demand a change. It's important that they're part of it to begin with. So an example is that right now I'm updating our city website, and I want to have a Fremont University. I want to teach people what are the roles and responsibilities. It gets very confusing from private sector to public sector on what legislative policies are involved. You can't just count on your elected officials to make their voice heard with people in terms of shaping your policies. It's something that the community, if they really believe and want to see a change, they need to participate in that with you. Because what the election will show, and you look at the officials, they all recognize, force of large populations of making their voices heard. And these watershed moments, like we talked about earlier, where we say, this isn't enough. We've had a moment where we need to get people coalesced. And if anything, this past couple of years, when we look at Black Lives Matter and other things, what we realize is it takes a large wave of people coming together and not just saying something, but living it And it's these policies that we set. It's creating, and for example, in our community, when we wanted to have discussions about mental health, it's not enough just to say, I want you to talk about mental health. It was creating public service announcements, having people that they could relate to speak this message, encouraging our youth in particular to create videos to be part of this messaging. Because while I'd like to think that we are able to communicate, there's much better and more creative ways that we can get the messaging out, from videos that we've done, from sessions and conversations, from even simple things. Like we have an idea here in Fremont called box art. And rather than using our utility boxes just to be standing there and a potential target for graffiti and other things, we're allowing our community to express their feelings, their views, their themes, and ideas to show what's important to them. And it's a beautiful way to help protect the community's asset in terms of it's sitting on the corner, and when you're waiting, it triggers thought and encourages our discussions. So that's just a little bit of what I think would be important. I also think that one of the things, and it's a touchy subject, and I will bring it up right now, I think that is very important is also for you to be an upstander, not a bystander. And in my last election and in past elections at times, there have been people who target others. And I do agree with Sheng in terms of being able to speak up and to talk about this issue. I find it a travesty or a misfortune that in this last campaign, we had people having hate speech about Asians and also misrepresenting. And the public is not always very educated. When they look at an article or something, they don't realize that somebody paid for that advertisement. It's a fake news story. And that if we don't say something about it, it results in some really unfortunate results. So in the last campaign, I had somebody allegate that I might be a foreign national or a spy. And this morning I was watching a video of how somebody I believe it's a trustee out in Ohio who had to show his loyalty. And I can't believe that I had to demonstrate for somebody's allegation that I might be working with foreign nationals or maybe working with communists or other stuff. And because of that fake messaging, in the last month alone, I've had 3 times somebody spray paint that in my city. But you have to realize, when we're working together as APIs, we need to stand up. You can't just sit there and watch it happen and just pretend that, this is something we're ignoring, because it doesn't go away and has ramifications, and that you need to have that courage. When other people are walking away, you need to stand up and say, this is wrong. So that's my comments on this.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor May. You're speaking from your heart. When people are making such allegations, it's so hard. And that's what, our Mayor Fung mentioned. You are not alone running in that campaign. Your entire family, parents to kids, everybody is in that together. Good. Councilmember Thao, I just want to, touch base with you also quickly. I just want to summarize, when one wants to run for an office, Mr. Fung said data, and Mayor May said, those people honest around should be speaking truth. Some of those, we have to find. Anything you can share in addition to those, prepare for office.
To prepare for office, yes. Absolutely. The data is incredibly important. And also the endorsements of the community. Absolutely. That was like part of a huge reason why I was able to run in the district, just because, getting to know the neighborhood leaders or what have you was incredibly important. Having certain community leaders endorse me, the people who other neighbors look to in regards to what kinds of things are happening at City Hall. And Mayor Lily May is correct. The majority of residents, they don't follow what City Hall is doing. They don't follow the politics really closely. And so, you have to know that. You have to know that, and you have to be ready to educate. And that's a part of it too, is, a lot of people don't even know what a council member does or what the role of the mayor is. Here in the city of Oakland, we have a strong mayor. And so when you say that, it's like, what does that mean, right? And so you always have to be ready to give examples such as, in the strong mayor, you can look at it as the mayor being the executive branch and the council being the legislative branch. And that's the role of what that looks like. And I think also understanding the budget. I think, adding on to what Mayor Lily May and adding on to the data from Mayor Fung, it's understanding your budget. is incredibly important, because remember, it's the residents' tax dollars that we are spending for services in the city. And many, depending on what kinds of services are lacking or what the community feels their money should be spent on, that's a really personal question, right? Because they know that you are supposed to be, you are the representative who is going to be working for them. And so for me, it was incredibly important to make sure that people knew that I am the voice to involve their voice, because I want to know how they feel about where we, the city, should spend their tax dollars, right? And that really triggered something in the residents, because I was actually the only candidate speaking on that. I mean, other candidates heard me saying that at candidate forums and then started following suit. But it's really incredibly important to me to make sure there's a transparency process in regards to how we use our tax dollars. And that was part of the platform that I was actually running on as well. And so knowing your community, really getting, not just the endorsement of like community leaders and organizations, but also understanding your budget, how much money the city receives, right? If it's close to $2 billion or what have you, what you usually spend it on. The majority of our tax dollars are spent on public safety. You have to know these things. How many officers are in your city, right? And for a city your size, how many officers typically should be in your city? That's just an example. And so knowing the data around and the polling around like what people care about, understanding, going to the community, having conversations with the community about what they care about, and then getting the nuances, right? So if they care about, say, in my district, it's wildfire prevention. That's something that my constituents care a lot about. And so I go and I meet with the community leaders who are on top of wildfire prevention. And then I speak with city staff in regards to, how do we have goat grazing and for how long? Is there a schedule? What is the backfill in regards to the last special district that we created, and what were these tax dollars paid for previously versus now? And what is the community asking for on top of what the services that they're receiving? And so it is your job to be a strong candidate. It is your job to figure out what's happening on the ground. And then not just that, but going to City Hall. It's one thing to talk in theory about it, and people will notice that, because a lot of candidates will talk really broadly about these subjects because everybody's going to know the popular subjects, right? But what makes you different? Do that extra work. Find out the nuances so you can have the data to back you and say, well, currently we have 795 officers. We are budgeted for 800 officers, and we haven't had those vacant positions filled in the last 3 years. And that's what I'm going to do. When you say that versus saying we want more officers, it's going to sound you're going to sound so much more competent, and you're going to sound like a person who knows what you're getting yourself into. And people are going to say, I want that person, because that's the leader I want, the leader that's going to go and do the work and get me the information I need. Because, as a resident, you're not following this stuff at City Hall. You're going to work. You have to take care of your kids. You need for your leadership, your representative, to come to you with the information so you can make a sound decision.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Thao. Awesome. I just want to summarize, the people who are listening, and you're all here because for a great reason. If not today, tomorrow, you have that thought, you know what, I want to make a difference, just like Mayor May and Mayor Fung and Councilmember Thao, maybe like YK, whatever it is. But you got to know a few things, how you can prepare yourself. I'm going to quickly summarize. It's important. You have to have some takeaway, people who are listening. Find those people who can honestly speak to you, speak for you, brutal facts. You need those people. Data, know your community. And I know Mayor May said 90 square miles, ready to walk. Find the best shoes fit for your body style, whatever it is, right? And understanding the financials. And when Mayor Fung said, after he got into the office, one thing he said, I turned the financials. Everyone cares about the taxpayer dollars. Keep that in your mind as well. And last but not least, these are all for preparing for office. How do you be the standout person, the person? These are the few things, audience who are listening to, keep in your mind. And it is important. Maybe I'm going to go through quickly one more quick round. We are almost halfway through of this program. Promise, we are not going to keep you all 120 minutes, but we want to make sure we are giving you the most useful information. If you want to ask any questions, please go ahead and post on the chat. We will pick if time permits. I'm going to go through the, one more question to, all three of you. It's important knowing you are not running alone. The entire family is running with you in the campaign. Maybe each one of you can give one example. You know what, that challenge I faced, it turned me down. I felt like, you know what, by mistake I came to this politics. I wish I could haven't. Any challenges you have felt that way? The reason why I'm asking, the people who are listening, they may try to run for and they may face that day. I don't want them to step back. I want them, you know what, I'm a different Lily May today. I'm going to face it. I'm going to move forward. Anything you guys can give, each one of you. I'll start with Mr. Fung. One example, that challenge you faced.
You're going to see that there's a lot of challenges pop up even every single day on the campaign. But, just getting back to those personal challenges, I think it came back to in both of my gubernatorial elections. And it never came up during my run for council or even from a mayor. But when I was talking about, things that have happened in my past, well, something did happen in my past when I was only 18 years old. I was involved in a very, bad auto accident, tragic accident. I ended up getting arrested, for it. Nothing came of it. There was no alcohol, no drugs involved. It was just a very bad accident that I transported. But the officer back at that time didn't know what to do because, there was a victim on the other side. And I was charged at that point. But all charges ultimately were dismissed. Grand jury dismissed it. And that's something that I've lived with, all my life. It never came out during all the other elections. I was prepared for it. But one of the things that I want to, relate to everyone is we all have things that happen in our lives. It's not easy when you're on a public stage. I sat back a couple of times and thought, it hadn't come out before. I know it was going to come out in a higher election for governor. Should this be something that, maybe I don't want out there? That's sometimes those considerations. You have to think about yourself, think about your family. And, for me, the other party that was involved, the person that, was hurt because of the accident. And you lived through a lot of that. But for me, I went through it painfully. It was tough because, you're living those moments out in the public eye. It even hit national media, when it came out. And that's one of the things that, I want to relate to you. Those are some of those difficult decisions you have to personally make sometimes and make that decision because for you, it might not be the right one to kind of face that publicly. You might not want to do that. But that's one of the things when you have a good sounding board, good family structure that's behind you, you can overcome a lot of that. And, I was very fortunate that it came out on my terms. How we decided to release that information in the appropriate way. And, one of the heartfelt moments for me about it, too, was because it made national news, the family of the victim who were no longer in Rhode Island ended up, hearing about it. And they even contacted me. And so it's sometimes those, moments that you live out there that you shouldn't let it be a hindrance. But just have a plan and be prepared for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Fung. Mayor May, if you don't mind, can you share, your thoughts? I know, Mr. Fung, when you said, yeah, it's not going to be one hindrance, one challenge we face probably every day, every other day. Maybe the, most important ones. Mayor May?
I would say that one of the things I'd have to be realistic on is there are many moments that you're celebrating, but there's always, and I would have to be totally honest, that there's never been a campaign where I haven't had a moment where I started crying or feeling hurt. And the things that hurt me the most probably are the ones that are most dear to you, are when people don't recognize the limit of your family. And for me, this past year was very challenging. There are a lot of different ways to express your concerns for the community. And we had a lot of demonstrations out in the public. And people don't realize that when we're in these roles that we have a life besides the politics sometimes. I think they just think that our job is to represent them and that we don't have a self-identity of any sort and or the limit. And during these demonstrations, I've spoken with other female mayors in particular too, but we've had incidents where people have come to our homes. And I think that that's very difficult. I absolutely believe in the right to express your feelings and to protest and demonstrate. But I think that when you take it to people's families, that is a level that which is personally to me despicable. I have never wanted to attack anyone else's families or make their neighbors or other people. I mean, I would hope all of us come from the heart of wanting to serve the community and wanting to make it better. And for me, that was probably the most difficult moment, that I should not have to worry. And I don't think anyone should have to worry about having a go bag or whether or not your family's lives are in danger. Some of the things that people didn't see on some of the demonstrations, which I personally saw, was some of the rhetoric that's being said, that they wanted to F my daughter, give her AIDS, that they wanted to rape or kill me or put hits on my family. I mean, those are things that, you know, when you're watching that, it is so emotional and so torn. And you're sometimes wondering, like, okay, why did I choose this career? Or why would I pick this? But the fact that you feel that, you know, it's important that the community has a voice. And it's also important, I think, whether it's for APIs or in these types of moments, that we don't back down, because we want to ensure that people aren't silenced, that people are given the opportunity. And how do we work through this together? And so that's one of the things that I would say would be the most important definition for so many who are running, that you have some good friends and good kitchen cabinet or people who will stand by you, because it's easy for everyone to be there to celebrate. It's not easy for people to be there when you need to do the work.
Mayor May, you are 110% right. I know when your daughter was visiting us, as Mayor May mentioned, you know, both of our daughters went to Cal Poly. And one summer, she visited us. I was not running, and we were at the dining table. She spoke those facts to my family, believe me. And that helped my family to get ready when I am running. Okay, it's not YK running alone, it's the entire family running together. And the acquisition comes to the entire family. So I just want to bring this and thank you, for, honestly saying family first. That's what we believe in, especially, Asian Americans. We come with a strong family values. Good, Miss, Councilwoman Thao, if you can share your thoughts that challenge you felt.
Absolutely. A personal challenge that I felt is in regards to, so I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I have a son that was born out of that relationship. And so my son doesn't know about that. And before running, it was really, I didn't want to tell my story, like all of it, right? I didn't want to say that I was a domestic violence survivor because like my son didn't know about it. And I didn't want him thinking a certain way about his father. That was really important to me. And so, as I was running my campaign in the beginning, I didn't want to speak about it, but my kitchen cabinet, having that thorough conversation with like honest conversation about like the goods, the bads, and what have you, we felt that it was incredibly important to voice what I have been through, because it's my experience and it's experience of a lot of, especially a lot of women. And so there's some relatability there. And so for me, it's important that, that I shield my son as much as possible from what I was doing, and what, it was going to come out, but like, how do I want it to come out? Right. And so like Mayor Fung said, you get ahead of it and you make it yours, you own it. And so, so that's what we decided to do, all the while protecting my son's privacy as much as possible. And so that was like a huge hurdle. And I've had men come up to me and say, I read about your bio. I like everything about you, except, you should take down that you're a domestic violence survivor, because like, that just sounds like you just want us to pity you. And for me, that was like the most, and only men has come up to me to tell me that. And for me, it gave me the fire to say, you're wrong, and I'm definitely keeping it up, because it's it's like It's because it's empowering for other women. I'm not asking you to pity me. That's how you see it. How I see it is I'm empowering other people who are going through the experiences that I went through, saying that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that narrative is important, incredibly important to be spoke on. We can't just hide the real life experiences that we go through, and I'm not ashamed of it. It's what I went through, and it's what has made me and has given me the fire that I have today. And so that was one of the personal challenges, but, it falls back on my son, and how that's going to affect him. And when he reads that in the paper, when he's older, like, how am I going to explain to him, all these things? And so now that he is older, we've had discussions about it. And I told him, your relationship with your father is completely separate and different from like what we went through in the past. And so having that open conversation with your family is going to be key, and the ongoing conversation. Every time when I'm about to do something, take on a new leadership role or what have you, this is a conversation I have with my son because it's around capacity, right? As a single mom, and the parent who's active in his life, it's about, capacity of like job, and then like what's the capacity of time spent with my son, and spending time with my son is everything to me, and so we talk these things through, and we're very honest. I allow him space, like free space and safe space to talk his truth, and we make these decisions together. I don't make these decisions by myself. I make it with my son, and because he's the most important thing to me. Another thing quickly is that you're going to get rejected. You're going to ask for endorsements, and people are going to say no to you, but you shouldn't stop there. You shouldn't stop there. You should actually either you can move forward and ask for other endorsements because there's other people and organizations who are willing to endorse you, or circle back. I found that when I circle back to folks who have said, I'm not there yet with you, but I circle back, that they love that consistency of like coming back, and they feel like you really want their support and want to, hear their voice. And so then they can ultimately not support you still, and that's okay. Just keep moving forward. But they sometimes will come around and say, okay, you got my support. I love that you have this, tenacity to come back and actually ask for this again. And so that goes to that also is applicable to fundraising as well. People may say, well, I've already donated to your opponent. I'm sorry, I can't support you this time. Well, that's fine. If you donated $100 to my opponent, maybe you can donate $50 to me, since I'm not your candidate. And so, like finding creative ways around what that support means. Support isn't just 100% all in. No, it doesn't mean that, It's like, can I have your support 50% of the way, 60% of the way? What does that look like? And what does that translate to? Whether it's, if it's not a lawn sign, if it's not an actual vote, can it be like $50, or whatever have you? Because we know that we're fundraising as we go as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can correlate to, all the stuff you are saying. Whenever I ran in 2018, one guy said up front, nope, I'm not supporting you. I never gave up. I pursued consistently. He supported me the first one in 2020. So that's true. That's true. I just want to make sure, there's so many audience listening. We are putting down so much information here. All of our intent, especially, behind us, Apapa, it's a big driver, getting elected, contribute to the community. So we want all of you to get ready, people, listeners, whosoever is listening. I know we have talked about, gather those people, those honest speakers, brutal honest and data. I can go through all those. I want to make sure in this round, the reason why I was bringing the challenges, like Lily May said, and Councilmember Sheng Thao said, it's important they speak from their heart, because you are going to face tomorrow. We rather want you to prepare for that day, right? That's important. That's why the purpose of these workshop series are prepare you to get ready for office. So I'm going to have it's a last round or last but round. Now they have heard so many. If they want to evaluate after 12 o'clock when we are done, if they are serious candidates, if we all inspired them, assuming we are going to inspire them, what are those things they start evaluating? You know what? These 3 or 4, I'm going to make a book, either a computer notebook, whatever it is, start evaluating themselves, start working from yesterday, supposed to be, but at least from 12:01, they can start evaluating themselves to be a much better candidate to ready for office. So I'd like to start with, Mayor Fung. If you can give, your style of, how do I, the fresh candidate, I'm going to run for office, I'm going to evaluate myself with these 4 boxes first.
Well, I think the simple question that they first have to answer is, why do I run? Why do I want to run for office? Because that's basically the main question that whoever you're asking, whether it's your family, friends, and neighbors, is. And by the way, don't forget to ask them for their vote too, because that's important. But the first follow-up question is, why are you doing this? And if you can't answer that yourself, in your heart of why you want to do it, you're not going to be able to explain it to anyone else. And the mayor and the council member were extremely right. You have to be who you are, why you want to be engaged. And if you're not authentic about any of your answers, about your background, about your policy positions, people will see right through that. So I think that's the first question that I would say, ask all of yourselves that why, and be able to answer it and have a good answer.
Thank you so much. Mayor May, if you don't mind, can you share your, that thought, what the other thing, maybe they can start checking that box?
Well, I think that why do you want to run is a good question, but I also want to ask, do you have the will? I think that it's not a short race, it's a long term, and that people have to realize that one of the things that puzzled me sometimes when people want to run for office, have you actually participated, whether it's at the council level, at the mayor level? Do you go to the meetings? Do you know what they're doing? It's a very basic question, because I think that sometimes you assume that there's power or responsibilities that don't come with that office, and that do you really understand? And if you go to the meetings, like for example, when I was on the school board, it's easy to judge the meeting and say, oh, why don't they make this decision? But when you go to the meetings and you realize that they start sometimes at 4:30 and don't end till like 2 a.m., do you have the tenacity? Because it's not like you just run and you get into office. That means also another however many years, in that case, 4 years of your life, is that you're going to be doing these. If you can't handle a few of those meetings, then you probably can't handle 4 years of it. So you really need to think about, if you're going to actually get the office, what are you going to do there? What are some of the goals? And will you have the tenacity, perseverance, and passion to really drive that home? And so it's easy to talk. It's easy to be a Monday, I'm not good at sports, I was going to say Monday morning quarterback or whatever, after the fact of the game, to analyze and say, critic, here's what we think you should have done. But can you actually go there? And even if you're not elected, that's one of the things I would say, encourage people, even if you're not elected, get involved with commissions or volunteer opportunities, because then you'll know what the job does. You'll get to know the person. Ask for people to be your mentor. Ask for the role that you want to be in, to be able to have coffee with the person, to get to know them, so they can give you some candid feedback of, this is what you want to do, really? Let me give you some of what that means. And then you can better evaluate if this is truly what you want, because I think sometimes when you're looking from the outside, it looks beautiful and everything else, but also realize that once you're in elected office, and I think Sheng alluded to that earlier, you live in a fishbowl, and everything about you, your family, and all the things around you become public comment, and everything from your physical features, your attributes, getting older or whatever, everything comes into public comment. And do you have the thick skin for that? And sometimes it's just the humor that you need to be able to survive that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Councilwoman, Thao, if you don't mind, please share your thoughts too. That check boxes they have to.
Absolutely. In regards to preparation, I think both of my colleagues have touched on some of the very important aspects of it. Yes, absolutely. I would suggest, if to go to the council meetings, if you're running for council or what have you, to really see how it's like what Mayor Lily may say. Also, get yourself appointed to boards and commissions, right? So figure out how the boards and commissions are being appointed, whether it's through the mayor's office or whether it's a recommendation from the council, city council members. Certain seats are done differently, but that's your job to do that research, right? And then apply for it and get yourself appointed. That's your first, a lot of it's usually volunteer. You don't get a stipend for it, but you'll see the capacity that you will need in order to actually be what it's kind of like to be an elected official, because you can take that experience and maybe times that by 10, and that's what it's like to be a local official. Also, attending these meetings are going to be critical because listen to what the public comment sounds like, right? Elected officials are always quote unquote attacked, and you have to have that thick skin. We sit through being called names and what have you, and it's people's First Amendment rights. They get to say what they say. Obviously, if they're spouting out false information, like I think somebody came out and said, don't fill out the questionnaire for for the census because we don't matter anyway. So don't do it. And then I had to step in and say, actually fill out the census because that's how we get resources. That's how we get dollars come to the city so we can do these things, right? And so like sometimes you have to being an elected official, you have to have that thick skin. You can't just combat everybody who says something bad about you. But when people are, saying like putting out false information, you must, say something and step up. But just being engaged, and the same thing with being engaged at City Hall, being engaged in your community efforts, right? Here in the city of Oakland, we have neighborhood councils, and neighborhood councils are smaller councils that are led by the community, right? It's kind of like city council, but then it's neighborhood councils led by the community, and attend those and be active on those if you want to start prepping, because those are going to be the people you get to know, and those are going to be the people who's going to potentially support you, extremely support you and walk for you and make phone calls for you, donate to you. And so getting your name out there right now is incredibly important, and expanding your network, right? You're expanding your network on the ground in the community, expanding your network with local elected officials. And that's part of being on boards and commissions, because when you're on boards and commissions, they usually send out their recommendations to the city council and the mayor. And so that's how the city council and the mayor will start recognizing your name and your work. And then within doing that work, figure out how you can have a unique voice that will make you stand out to these elected officials so they can see your leadership. And so when the time comes for you to run and you ask them for an endorsement, they already know the kind of work and the kind of passion you bring. So then it's easier for them to say, actually, I like your work. Yes, I can work with you in the future if you were elected to be on the body with me, right? And so creating those networks is key to prepping for what if you're interested in running for office. And it really just gives you a greater insight in regards to what that fishbowl looks like.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm just going to quickly summarize, all our esteemed speakers were emphasized few areas. If you as an audience here for the last 90 minutes and you are getting ready for run for an office, first question is, why do you want to run? It's a dumb question. If somebody asks, it is not a dumb question. Even sometimes till today, I stumble on that because that's a very challenging question, how you are going to answer it. And do you have the will, right? You got to have that strong will. And as Mayor May said, 90 square miles. Mine was 167 square miles of streets. I got to walk. If that's what it is, that's what it is. I know, if people who, listening, if anybody is disabled, those nature, I just want to be very respectful. There are so many ways you can reach people. You don't have to walk all the time, right? We can be creative on that one. And participate in the city council meetings. When I met Mayor May, she said, YK, you got to go there. Every Tuesday, 2nd and 4th, I was at the city council meeting. When I got elected, I never felt I'm a new going to that city hall. You have to feel for it. And not only feel for it, please don't look your iPhones when you are in the city council or looking. Pay attention. When there is an agenda item is coming, you put yourself on that seat, see how you are going to respond back to that agenda item. So I just want to make sure it is serious. If you are running for an office, think serious from 12:01 today. Not yesterday or when you file the papers. When you file the papers, if you think seriously, that's too late, unless I'm saying it wrong, council members and mayors here. right? And get appointed for the commissions. Very, very important. I know we just got November elections over. Some of them are filling, some still are vacant. Please go and knock on your city council's doors and find those people, who can support you. And also look for that mentor. If you want to, writing it, checklist, please. That's why I'm repeating here and summarizing those ones. And we jot down, the potential factors at the beginning. And now we are giving the summary, what those things you have to get ready. This is the how to get elected is a workshop series. We don't want to scare the audience by dumping everything in one workshop. We'll have a workshop 2 and 3 down the road, and we have different aspects. With that, I think I'm going to go quickly to request and ask for any closing remarks our esteemed panel can share with those enthusiastic participants and audience for this. So I'm going to go with Councilwoman Sheng Thao. Please, any closing comments you would like to share with this our audience?
Absolutely. I just, this is the first step, is joining forums like this. He's really talk to elected officials or learn or get the training on how do you prepare. And so trainings such as these are incredibly important. If you are interested in further trainings or what have you, definitely go out and look for those trainings. It will definitely help you prepare for how you run for office. Running for office is a strategy, and it's a thing that you don't do alone. So mentors are going to be incredibly important. We talked about kitchen cabinet as well. And so I would like to offer that if you have any questions that you would like to reach out to me, please do. You can reach me at Sheng, SHENG, for Oakland, that's FOR, and then Oakland, OAKLAND, @gmail.com. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Apapa and YK, and to my colleagues, Mayor Lila May and Mayor Fung. It's been a joy to be here with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman, Sheng Thao. You are so inspirational. I'm sure they may be seeing the same way. At least for me, you are. Thank you. And with that, Mayor Allan Fung, please, anything you would like to share, your word of wisdom?
Thank you, YK. I just want to, say thank you to Apapa for, starting this first inaugural series to help many candidates. I know the three of us, I was privileged to be on this panel with, wish many of us had these type of resources and workshops when we were starting. It may feel lonely right now, but don't be afraid to ask any one of us. And similar with myself, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My personal email is allan@allanfung.com, ALLAN@ALLANFUNG.com. We will be there. We know what it's like to start in those shoes. We know a lot of the experiences that we had that we can impart to you. And it's up to you. It's your campaign. Take it for whatever it's worth. And we're here just to provide guidance and support, because ultimately all of our goals is to see more of our faces up in offices at all levels. Because as one of the fastest growing populations in this country, in the world, we need more people that look like us. And I can say for myself, and I'm sure my colleagues, we don't care about a lot of times the party affiliation. We want good people in office that's believing in many of our causes, and we're happy to support all of you. And I'm privileged to be here, and I can't thank Apapa and everyone enough for spending this important Saturday with all of you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Allan Fung. Thank you. And Mayor May?
Well, I'm very fortunate, I guess, to be able to wrap some of this up. But I wanted to say thank you to Apapa and to all those my fellow participants. And I'm so appreciative of this opportunity. I definitely echo the sentiments that say that it's important for us to have a voice at the table. And I've coming up with my own feelings. So sometimes people say, if you're not have a seat at the table, that's because you're on the menu. And I was jokingly saying this year that for 2021, if you don't have a seat at the table, I think I have to reset the table. And so that's kind of where we have to work on this with each other. But that's also an important conversation that I think is when we talk about getting prepared. You're going to see people that you agree with, and that sometimes you'll love them, sometimes you'll hate them, but it's whether or not you're able to have an important conversation and dialogue in a productive manner. And that when you're looking for mentors, don't always look for people that have the exact same view as you. Sometimes look for those who have an opposing view with you, because that will allow you to better understand the other person's perspective. And that's really important. When I look at this conversation and getting ready for being an elected leader, it means finding people that share your values, but also finding those who don't. And how can you work with them to come up with solutions that can address your community's concerns, and putting yourself outside of it and recognizing that when it comes to team, there's no I. It's together, everyone can achieve more. And so that's what I'm hoping for all of you to get ready. And thank you for spending your Saturday with us. And that I'm delighted to hear that you're hopefully getting involved in the community in a different role or capacity. My email, personal email, is lily@lilymei.org, LILY@LILYMEI.org. So we would love to see more of you. And when we're able to be able to see you in person, and to be able to gather, because these types of forums, especially, I wanted to say my last word is also to the interns, is that this is a great opportunity. You don't have to be an elected, whether out there to make that difference, and that you have the energy and you are our future. And so we're very excited to be able to engage all of you. You don't have to be in this role, but whatever role that you're doing, hopefully that you're able to bring some of that passion and that creativity and that humble desire for change to making something really happen in our communities. And thank you, YK, and to all of the Apapa leadership again for this forum today.
Thank you so much. I know I'm saying 3 so's because we have our 3 esteemed members. And audience, whether virtually or so, I'm just giving a nice, applaud for all our esteemed speakers. And this event is not possible without all our great audience listening to us. I have a few more things to cover about Apapa and our next workshops, what we will be doing. And I know our esteemed panel members gave their personal information, but we will share those one with you more formally. If the people who are out there listening and watching, if you can drop your email IDs on the chat, that way we can put you through our registration. So once again, thank you so much for our esteemed panelists and guests, and we will definitely be reaching for additional help. Thank you again. I'm going to quickly go through a few things about our Apapa and our next workshops. Our executive director is here, Mr. Ted Fung. You have done an amazing, before I go to my last thank you note, you have done a super, it's always like that, right? That person hidden, we can't see him, but he produced everything, the great producer. Good. Mr. Fung, I know I can't see on my screen. There is one more screen is coming here before my PPT. Yep. So I think most of you probably know Apapa, APA. It's Asia Pacific Islanders American Public Affairs. We have a great mission. It is empowering API Americans. We are here and we are going to help, however, to engage you in our public affairs and civic engagement. That's our #1 focus. Next slide, please. And here is, Apapa has in so many states, it's almost like 35, 40 states, if you can see it, and over 30 plus chapters. We are actively engaged throughout United States. Next slide, please. And our membership is over 20,000. Apapa is open for everybody, please. It's not just for API. Our membership is open. Please join us and type, if you are a first time listening to the Apapa, please type your email out there. We will be in touch with you. Next slide, please. And this is what we have done today, getting elected to local office, phase 1. We do have phase 2. Let me quickly run through the phase 1. why you want to run for the elected office. That's what today we have gone through all those key activities. And our next workshop is going to be, next slide please. Workshop 2, May 21st. How to evaluate and at-large cities and other information. We want to prepare you all the bullets we are displaying there on our second workshop. And the next slide, please. We do have a third workshop, and this one is on August 28. You want to make sure your campaign is going to be the winning campaign, and how to identify the consultants, or the staff, volunteers. So we are going to cover that on August 28th workshop. Those are the phase 1 workshops. If we feel the audience who are listening and doing your due diligence, I think we have run through several topics here. And if you think, what, I'm ready, I'm going to run for the office, we have a second series of workshops coming up, which is a phase 2. Next slide, please. In this phase 2, we are going to work with you. All our esteemed 3 panel members, they are giving their personal email IDs also, which means Apapa and our elected officials, we are committed. If you are committed, we are going to work with you on phase 2 to prepare you for your filing. We want you to ready for your 2022 elections. That is all of our goal, especially that is the main vision, driver of these these series of activities and Apapa goal. So I hope you are taking this as a challenge, and we hope you will be there with us. With that, I'm going to close with this statement. Our esteemed President J.F. Kennedy said in his famous inauguration speech, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for our country and our people." Please take that as a serious and start evaluating. And for sure, I think our esteemed member said, running for a local office, there are so many local offices. School board, city council, county, and other boards like SMUD board, Elk City. Think about it, which one you want to run for, and keep your family with you. Your family has to have an agreement, and start preparing that sweet 2 sentences why you want to run for office. Very consistent. So those are our Apapa wishes. Before we end this session, I would like our Apapa National Executive Director to come and say a few words to all of you. Ian Marshall, please welcome and share your thoughts with our audience.
Thank you, YK. What a great learning session. Thank you, Mayor Lily May, Councilmember Sheng Thao, and Mayor Allan Fung. On behalf of Apapa, I would like to express my gratitude for your time and your support of our mission to empower and educate the next generation of leaders. Your inspirational journey to leadership and all the tips you provided will be put to great use. I would also like to thank our very own Government Relations Committee leaders, Councilman YK Chalamcherla and Patrick Lay, as well as our legendary Millie Tom. Your dedication and leadership made these government educational series possible for our members. And to our audience today, thank you for joining us on a Saturday. I hope you were inspired and ready to serve. Representation matters now more than ever. We need to have more API leaders in the community and in the government where policy is shaped. In case you don't know, the Apapa Government Relations Committee, GRC, supports Asian and Pacific Islander American leaders who seek public service through government appointments at the local and state level. These include appointments by the Governor of the State of California and appointments on city boards and commissions. The GRC offers logistical support, application and resume review, interview training services, and letters of recommendation to qualify API candidates. For us to support you, though, you need to be a member of Apapa. Go to apapa.org/GRC to find out more details. And finally, today's segment would not be possible without our amazing producer, Ted Fong. Thank you, Ted, for making us look so good online. That's it. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.
Thank you, Yan. Thank you so much for such a sweet, thank you note. And I'm going to reiterate one more time. Our Ted Fong, the great man, and who put together this seamless. As I was mentioning to you, I'm in front of CNN News. He brings those so quality and messages to all of us. Once again, thank you so much. We hope to see you on May 21st. That is our workshop 2. And if you have any questions, please reach out to our Apapa. And please, I encourage to join Apapa as well. Once again, thank you so much and namaste.